All right, so now my Idaho 4 topic, which I did. This is one of the few times that we knew what each other were bringing to the table. Not what we were saying, just somewhat of the topics, because I had been saying that I wanted to cover this topic. And shout out to somebody who left the comment. They ultimately were the final decision in covering this. I had been saying that I wanted to cover it for a while now, and them bringing it up, I was like, all right, now's the time to cover this, you know. And it happened to line up perfectly with what Malia was just talking about the FBI going back to the house, okay? So, what am I talking about here? I am talking about a very tiny, minimal, little, baby, minuscule, minute amount of evidence, okay, for a quadruple homicide. And what's funny is we're hearing the opposite. So again, I feel like this case has turned into, whenever you hear something that like sounds too good to be true, that's where you need to look in this case, which is concerning, but okay.
It is alarming.
Idaho 4 only has 113 pieces of evidence, real evidence, physical evidence, evidence from the house.
Not including pictures.
Not including pictures or their supposed documents, which are people calling in tips, which when you're a defense and you're asking for that, if you didn't get the lead from a tip, I guess you want all of it. But like, they lean on that so hard.
Yeah,
okay?
We're talking about evidence from the home. It's 113 pieces of physical and then 4,000 pictures.
Convicting type evidence, what you would expect, okay? So it is only 113. That is it, and that is nothing. That is nothing. Just take like 2 seconds here to think. In a house that had 4 people, 3 people that lived there, 1 boyfriend who was probably there all the time. Think of all the things that come with all those people in this potential crime scene that we know for sure the suspect was on 2 levels, maybe even 3. We don't know. And they've only pulled 113 pieces of evidence between trash cans, exterior evidence,
dumpsters.
Interior evidence, dumpsters. This is including fingerprints. This is including DNA samples. This is literally including everything except for paper-based or picture-based evidence.
Well, another thing is to add is this was a bloody crime scene where 4 people were stabbed, and not just stabbed, but slashed, gouged, brutally assaulted, okay, in a terrible, horrifying way. There's going to be blood splatter everywhere. There was blood leaking down to the foundation of the home. Like, it should be way more than that, in my opinion. With 4 people, and we know that in Xana's room, the bodies were spread out a little bit, and Xana with Maddie and Kaylee, they were in the same bed. But even then, like, just think about arterial spray. Think about, drips. Think about, how the blood is going to travel and move.
Yeah,
and then this person is passing through the home to leave.
I'm not even as worried about
entry.
that. I'm more worried about the things they owned. Everything should have been taken.
Agreed.
Drip Drop did a video showing vans being taken out of the house, which, yes, that is concerning considering we believe that shoe print, that latent shoe print, is a van-style shoe print with the diamond tread or whatever. But, okay, if I sat here just quickly, I could probably come up with 50% of 113, just top of mind, not even thinking about the science tests that are involved. Think of how many pieces of clothing each person had on. You're probably talking underwear. Each sock is considered a different piece of evidence. The bottoms, tops, if they have anything in their hair, hairbands, anything like that, earrings. Then you're going to be checking actual wounds. You're going to check and see if there's any of suspect blood mixed in with them. You're talking about every piece of material that's on the bed. You're talking the bed, if they have a frame, if they have a box spring under that, like that right there. Between the 2 rooms, I'm estimating is in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Okay.
Well, and also, like, any splatter on the wall, like, should have had a swab. Any splatter on the ground, any drip, should have had a swab, or cut that piece out and taken it with you. Like, it just seems kind of wild. And then you have, Drip Drop pointing out that the trash sat outside for forever.
I agree. I think that we could just land the point just talking specifically about the rooms. How? Whether the closet's open or the closet's closed. You're telling me there weren't shoes that were out there laying next to the bed out in the open somewhere? We haven't even begun to talk about electronics and needing all the evidence off of there. They probably each had a computer. They probably each had a phone. We're getting up into potentially 50 or half of this evidence, and I'm not even an expert. It is so frustrating how so many people look at this, right, and they're quick to jump on the law enforcement board, which I'm not anti-law enforcement, and I'm quick to jump on that too until I see problems. And I see a lot of problems here. And again, we make this statement every single time. It is not about Bryan Kohberger. I don't care if he's innocent. I don't care if he's guilty. We aren't talking about this for his innocence or his guilt, okay?
No.
We are holding our justice system accountable, and that's what it is. It's ours. So anybody that says that let the police do their job, you shouldn't be making theories, you should stay out of it.
And that they don't owe us anything?
I don't know what country you live in, but I don't think it's the U.S. if you believe that. These systems are ours, the people, okay? We vote these people in. We manage these people with our votes. Yep, we pay them with our own tax dollars. We absolutely are expected to hold these public servants accountable by checking, verifying, and grading their work product. And anybody that isn't is, I don't know if I would say an injustice, because to each their own, okay? There are going to be people out there that aren't interested in that.
You have the freedom to not care.
Yeah, you have the freedom to not care. But if you are a person who cares, you should be looking at these things. You should be. You don't know if something could come up where trace DNA because a family member sent something across the U.S. all of a sudden is in a crime scene somewhere or something like that. Like, don't you want trustworthy law enforcement to make sure things are going to be done correct, unbiased,
I think
not looking through a little scope and ignoring everything else around them?
I think people lean on the fact, like, that's rare, that police corruption in that way and lying and framing people is rare. And it might be, but even if it's unlikely, it still happens all the time. That's why we have things like the Innocence Project, because it still happens. And it's still possible.
It does happen. And the only way to identify that is to verify. And this idea, it just blows my mind, okay? So I started looking into this, and it's not as easy to find averages of physical evidence as you would think. You know, I started on Google, DuckDuckGo, went to way back, all these different search engines to try and find, like, hey, what's the average physical evidence that's found at a crime scene in a single homicide? What's the average physical evidence at a crime scene that's found in a single location, right? Maybe that varies some. And I was able to find some numbers, but not as much as I would have liked, okay? But here is a document specifically focused around the management and care of crime scene investigation. So we have crime scene processing and reconstruction. A critical element in the investigation of any crime is the collection of physical evidence. Eyewitness accounts are not always reliable, and many times the victims, as well as suspects, give biased accounts of what occurred. Now, I'm going to say it one more time. Eyewitness accounts are not always reliable, and many times the victims, as well as the suspect, give biased accounts of what occurred.
Well, you know, most prosecutors and cops say witnesses are not usually reliable.
A lot say that. So the fact that we're hearing through the grapevine, this is not confirmed. The fact that we're hearing through the grapevine, the entire grand jury was leaned on the statement of Dylan and Bethany is scary.
Yeah, I mean, honestly...
At best.
And we're also hearing the timeline is based off of their accounts and their phone history.
I hear you.
I
mean, we aren't hearing the phone history. I know there's been some talking about that, but nobody has said that. Not anybody worth, it's not anybody worth. Not anything that is worth believing has come out.
Yeah, I think people have pulled some stuff from documents to kind of try to prove that. To be honest, I can't speak on it too much because I haven't looked at those documents myself, but...
I've just seen creators come out with videos asking those questions, and I think that would have came out if it benefited the prosecution's timeline. It didn't. It is not in the PCA. It is not talked about, and that timeline changed 2 different times. So I do not think that that's there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that change. But that's just, again, opinion. So going back to what we were saying here with the eyewitness accounts or bias, frequently there is only one survivor and one story available. It is the physical evidence which is used to resolve any conflicts. The prosecutors often insist that the investigators have physical evidence supporting the charges and linking the suspect to the victim or crime scene before they will file the case. The trial courts are requiring that the case be supported by physical evidence, which has at its foundation scientific principles relating to provable facts. If all the physical evidence has not been collected or preserved properly, it has been found to be reversible error, and convictions have been overturned by the appellate court. All these factors make it essential that the crime scene be completely and properly investigated and that all the physical evidence be collected, evaluated, and preserved. The majority of crime scene processing is the responsibility of the officers and detectives. The latent print section of the laboratory provides fingerprint and photographic support, while the criminalists will scientifically examine the physical evidence collected. In certain circumstances, the criminalists are available on call out for active crime scene support. The officers are responsible for the documentation, collection, and preservation of the physical evidence, and the laboratory staff will assist and provide technical support in most cases. It'll vary from state to state. But then crime scene processing. A crime scene consists of the location of occurrence, any means of transport of a victim, any secondary locations, graves, dump sites, etc. And the victim, him or herself, the purpose of examining a crime scene is fourfold. 1, to prove or disprove that a crime occurred. 2, to collect physical evidence linking a suspect or suspects to the victim or victims or crime scene, or to the victim and or suspect to a primary or secondary crime scene. 3, to collect physical evidence which will help reconstruct the circumstances involved in the incident. 4, to provide investigative leads which can result in an information on the victim and suspects. 113.
Yeah, but to be fair, they were talking about digital stuff there too.
What?
Like they included digital stuff in that. But yeah, 113, it seems low. And that's why I really wanted to be able to compare it to other cases.
This doesn't talk about digital, what I was just talking about.
Oh, I thought it mentioned something about...
No, it just, the only thing it said with digital is it gave the breakdown of, the latent print section of the laboratory provides fingerprint and photographic support, while the criminalists scientifically examine the physical evidence collected. It doesn't talk about digital.
Okay.
Yeah. But, I can't see how you can read this and think 113 is okay. I don't understand it.
Well, And there's 4 people here.
Agreed.
It's just really odd.
Agreed.
They have to identify entry and exit points and take fingerprints from windows, doors, surfaces within the home, anywhere and everywhere. It just seems weird. And all the blood and anything.
You don't know if there wasn't mixing of blood. If somebody didn't get caught, that was a suspect. Or cut, I'm sorry. If somebody didn't get cut.
Yeah, because all that blood, you would need a test, swab a lot to make sure that that's not someone else's blood, too.
And defensive wounds.
Yeah, there were defensive wounds on 2 people, meaning they fought back. So, what?
If anyone ever gets themselves into a situation, make sure you grab an eyeball. Get that skin under your nails, man. Because when I hear defensive wounds, that's what I wondered is, okay, do they have anything under their nails maybe? Or was the defensive only or grabbing the knife, you know what I mean?
Right.
But this is super interesting here. So the various techniques for crime scene processing are determined by the nature of the crime and the location of the crime scene. So therefore, being quadruple homicide, you would think would be a lot. These techniques are covered in various texts and in-service and on-job training. The investigating officer should consider a number of criteria relating to physical evidence while examining a crime scene. Anything that is present in a crime scene can be physical evidence. Not all physical evidence is readily visible. Latent fingerprints, shoe prints, trace evidence. Minimal disturbance to the scene by non-essential personnel is critical. They can remove, alter, destroy, or add physical evidence to the scene. The best means by which to secure a crime scene or item of evidence is to restrict access and avoid disturbance of the area. Recognition of something as physical evidence is a major factor in the crime scene processing. Experience and training is important. Documentation by measurements, notes, photography. All physical evidence must be collected and preserved in such a manner. So I'm gonna attach this document to this video. Okay, this goes through essentially how the physical evidence should be gathered. It tells you in here, collect all items of physical evidence. When in doubt, collect.
Exactly. That is a good point, is that when they are not sure if they need something, you collect it anyway.
Yes.
And that would make you think they would have an abundance in excess of physical evidence. And you know what I just looked up because I was curious? How many items, does a home have on average? And it's 300,000.
Yeah.
Is how many items an average home has. Now, think about it. How many people were living there?
I already know.
Going to college, and they're all girls.
Yep.
Meaning they have a ton of stuff, probably. Makeup, pens, notepads, tons of clothes, hair accessories. I mean, anything and everything you could see in a college girl's room. Pictures up on the walls, bullet boards, just so many things.
Yep. I agree, and I don't understand, and it makes me question it, you guys, because here's a direct statement from them when they're talking about evidence here. The prosecution tells the defense in the filing they have turned over 10,000 pages of reports and written materials. 10,200 photographs, 9,200 tips, and 51 terabytes of audio. So that's what it says. And
audio?
Of video and audio and digital materials. And they don't talk about the 113 pieces of physical evidence at all.
They don't have to turn those over, that's why. They just turn over the documentation and research on those items.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is. This is a list of accounts of the crime scene. So they did not include that because it looks bad. I'll probably be including clips here. And we're going to play one now, and I'll just overlay it. But
understand the best thing we can do for victims and their families is to follow every lead, collect every piece of evidence, and bring those responsible to justice.
All right, still with me, civil rights.
Every lead, every piece of evidence to bring those responsible to justice.
Really? Every piece?
Yeah. The evidence in this is a problem, you guys. Based on everything that I've been reading, right, and some examples of what that 113 pieces would be. Any biological material, blood or bodily fluids, saliva, fibers from what could have been rubbed off on a shirt in the area or a jumpsuit. Did they not check if there's any fibrous material on their floors? I feel like that would be a given.
Yeah, that's another thing is you know, in the last video, that retired FBI agent Schmidt was saying, you know, maybe they'll be looking for hairs, fibers, little tiny things that they could have missed. And I'm thinking, that stuff is scattered like the wind, just like touch DNA. Like, I don't feel like you can rely on that at this point. And Taylor was there. What if she just got done seeing Bryan Kohberger, went in the home, and had one of his hairs on
That's
her?
why all this should have been done before. And that's what I'm saying. That is literally selling my point, because we don't have to worry about cross-contamination this far in. That's already done with.
The fact of the matter is that this is an incredibly complex crime scene, and with the killer still on the loose, every bit of evidence is going to be significant and helpful to crack this case open.
The knife, the incredible amount of blood, and the complexity of a bustling home with plenty of visitors. The forensics team is on a case like few others.
It's so very complex. We're not talking about a person that just randomly walks up on the street and stabs somebody and walks away. We're talking about 4 individuals here.
Forensics professor and Body Bags podcast host Joseph Scott Morgan also taking note of how the murderer slipped into the home on Moscow's Kings Road. No broken windows, no broken doors.
And for the investigators, that's a big piece of information. It goes from, if you're looking at a potential suspect, what level of familiarity did they have with this environment? Did they feel comfortable in it? Did they know their way around? Would they say, you know what, maybe I don't want to go in the bottom? Keep in mind, the 2 people that live downstairs, they didn't die.
And also in this case, a complicated stew of DNA from the roommates and, as a hopping college house, many guests.
Why? Okay, they believe now that Bryan Kohberger could have bought a jumpsuit from Walmart. That jumpsuit is cotton. Cotton gives off fibers, especially when you're doing something super active. There are little fibrous hairs, furry pieces that everyone out there, if you're watching, you will have seen on your clothes. Why are there no fibers found at the crime scene? It talks about paint chips here as an uncommon example. Glass, soil, vegetation, food. Did somebody pick up and move the food that was dropped off there that never got eaten?
Oh, it was sitting there a long time too.
Fingerprints, accelerants, hair. Dylan claims she saw eyes. How do we know eyebrow hairs didn't fall off? Serious.
Insert clip of taped eyebrows.
Right, right. And Dylan didn't mention any taped eyebrows, okay? Impressions, shoe prints, latent, or any marks.
Latent
anything.
prints at all.
Fracture patterns with glass, tape, doors, narcotics, electronics. Everything, you guys. Like, I hope I'm landing this point. This is an insane number here.
For a quadruple homicide, absolutely. Honestly, any homicide.
I would think that they should be locking this down, getting a piece of tape, and being like, okay, 1, 2, like, there should be 113 pieces on just looking for fibers on the floor.
With tape.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
What are we missing here? There's probably 50 pieces of evidence in the trash can outside that wasn't checked. You know how many times we've already covered cases where a suspect left DNA on a cup, on a teacup, on
Got a drink. Yep.
How do we know the killer didn't go up to the sink, turn on the sink, and put their head under it to get a drink, and it touched their mouth? Like, this is a 3-story house.
Yeah.
My mind is blown. Unless, is there a reason why they don't want that much evidence? Did they see cleaning materials used in the house and pick up on that? Wait, why does it smell like ammonia? Why does it smell like Windex? Why does it smell like bleach? Why is there a latent footprint that randomly with none other here? Did the remaining roommates be like, yeah, we did because we were nervous because we had drugs, or you know what I mean? I'm not trying to blame anybody, but are these realistic theories?
Or did the killer stay and clean?
Or the killer staying clean for the 8-hour gap. I just know 113 to me does not feel thorough, does not feel respectable, does not feel honest.
Feels, yeah, dishonest and lazy.
This was a party house.
Yeah.
There should be 50 different DNA profiles.
There should be spit all over that place. There should be probably other bodily fluids. They're young and partying.
I do know. Did they check the bathroom? Did they take a toilet water sample because maybe the suspect went pee? Like, are these things being done? I know it's funny to joke about, but like,
he took a wee.
Our angle has, because we don't care if Bryan Kohberger is guilty or innocent, our angle has always been, did the police do their job in this situation?
Yep.
Or did they do this? Hey, we should probably grab that as evidence. That one. Oh yeah, that one looks good. Oh yeah, definitely that one. Or did they do a thorough edge-to-edge crime scene analysis in these rooms? I'm super curious what you guys think.
It also brings to question what they did collect. So what did you collect? What are those 113 pieces of physical evidence? One is golf clubs, apparently, that supposedly were being kept in a totally different room, in the vacant room.
Yeah, that's super strange.
So what's that about then? You know?
Yep. Super
a body pillow with
strange.
No pillowcase. Like, it's just weird looking at what they did collect.
Yeah. And so the only breakdown, because I went looking for science documentation on this, the only document I could find is the role and impact of forensic evidence in the criminal justice process. And they cited a few different cases. The weird thing is that why I don't want to tie directly all the physical evidence portion in there is because this is a very specific type of case that I don't feel like any of the case files they were giving align with it very well. This is a multiple homicide in a single location. Nobody's moved or anything like that. So I don't feel like it matches with a lot of these cases, but and I'll attach this on the chapter that talks about hard to solve cases, meaning they had no clue who the suspect was. And that's how this case was in the beginning. They had no clue who he was. That Ann Taylor says there's no connection to Bryan Kohberger to these victims, okay? Over 503 of them pieces of evidence. Over 500. And you guys got to remember, that 113 is including Bryan's car, Bryan's apartment, and Bryan's parents' house.
Wait.
Cases that I've covered with all of the different evidence that's entered in a court of law, This particular crime is going to have multiple locations. Let's just start with the inside of the house. I mean, don't get me started. There's 2 bedrooms at least. There's the entrance point, and there's whatever was tracked, and there's all the different hair fiber fingerprints that anybody has left behind that needs to be excluded. That's a lot in a house like that. It's not a single family home. There's lots of boyfriends and girlfriends and friends and former tenants, etc. Then there's the outside of the house, wherever that killer left, and whatever footprints, shoe prints, whatever trail of anything he or she may have left. Then there are all 3 floors. Then there are 6 cars, presumably each roommate might have had a car. Maybe Ethan had one too. It sounds like a lot of places where a lot of things have to be looked at. And so that's why I sort of thought 113.
Are you sure?
I am 100% sure.
I thought it was just from the Moscow residence.
Nope.
You're positive.
100% positive. There are multiple videos out there where this was a point of conversation where multiple attorneys have been like, yeah, that's concerning. If I was the defense, I definitely would focus on that. Multiple videos out there. You're either going to find that or you're going to find people who are going to say, well, no. They have a ton of evidence. They have 10,000 pictures and 9,000 tips. I mean, pictures and tips don't prove that this person, a suspect, did it.
Tips
those are a completely separate thing than the physical evidence.
Tips are, okay, we can't even have the IGG in discovery because it was a tip. So to act like tips are evidence is just absurd. They're not evidence.
I don't think any of that is evidence. Unless the suspect is in the crime scene pictures. Those 10,000 pictures are crime scene pictures. And then a few of the gas station, whatever. Unless there's a suspect in one of those pictures, they don't mean much to this case. They're betting on 113 pieces of evidence to prove that this suspect that had no connection to these 4 people was there. I don't know, man. I feel so strange about it. I felt strange from day one. I'm sure you remember me bringing it up. Right when I heard it, I was like, oh.
Well, I told it to you when we were doing 113? The timeline. We were doing the Ian timeline, and that's when I found that piece of information. And yeah, we both were like, wait, what?
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Nothing's adding up. This is the physical evidence for this case is 113. Something strange here, you guys.
Something smells like fish.
Yeah. But I'm really curious what you guys think on this. I hope I was able to land my point. I suggest you never take our word for it. I suggest that you go and do some research and look up your own stats on it. This is a problem.
Yeah.
This adds to the idea that the police were not ready for this type of crime. They didn't have the experience. It wasn't there. A 2-year police, I don't even know what his ranking is, but Payne, 2 years in the police force, right, in that position, and he's leading this whole investigation.
He was lead detective. He was lead investigator on the case.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a problem here.
Yeah.
There is a problem here. And every time we hear the news say, our goal is to gather all the evidence, every piece, show every single thing so we can be American and get the right guy. I mean, that's easy to do when you only have 113 pieces of evidence. I just wonder why. Did they check every single window for fingerprints? Did they check every single door handle for fingerprints? Each one of those tests could have been a piece, you know, because I'm sure every door has fingerprints on it. They wouldn't know till they took it back to the machine. How many doorknobs are in the home? Because there should be an equal amount of physical evidence as doorknobs, right? Including pieces that aren't tied to Kohberger. You include those. How many drawers in dressers? Like, stuff in drawers. How do we know the killer didn't open a drawer and grab a piece of their clothing and wipe their face because they got blood on it? Like, why? I just don't get it. I don't get it. Not even touching on the tin hat numerology aspect of 113. I just don't get it.
I don't get it either.
But let me know what you guys think. I feel like I landed that point, hopefully.
Yep. You took it all the way home.
All the way.
Home run.